So quicker than you can say Karz Kreated, here's another Q&A Friday. So episode 3, wow, I'm surprised I've made it this far and just barely. Look, I got almost 1,800 subscribers and there's like only a handful of people who actually contribute to these videos. I need more people to do things for these videos. That's how it works. It's a community. You ask questions, I give answers. But I was able to improvise like I always do, and I was able to make this work. So I have some entertaining questions of my own that I'm asking myself to give you the answer to. So it's going to be kind of interesting, some fun questions. And there was actually one question that was left over from last video that I chose to wait till today to answer. So with that said, let's get on to episode 3 of the Q&A here on the Karz Kreated channel. Okie dokie. So what was the first question I have here? The first question I have is going to be the last question that was actually asked by the viewers. And this comes from American GTS. Hey man, thanks for asking the question. No, seriously, dude. Thanks. So he said he was getting an MKS. He ended up getting an SHO. The question was, which mods would you recommend that I start with, and which mods are the most value for the money? Okay, so in my experience with the SHO, all the things I did to that car, honestly, man, if I were to do it all over again, knowing how much the SHO needs to get it to fast to really fast, honestly, I would just put a tune in it and call it a day. Do a 3-bar tune. So in the supporting mods, you know, if you go through a vendor like Gearhead or whoever, they're going to require a 3-bar map sensor, probably a step coulter plugs, and call it a day. Do a 93 performance tune and leave it. Don't do anything else. Just don't. Like Gearhead tune, the only reason I would suggest them is because they have the auto octane. It keeps the scaling feature that's in the factory forward strategy for their calibration. So, you know, if the octane isn't quite right, the knock sensors pick up on it, scales back timing and boost. That way you don't mess anything up. I love that feature. So if any tuner offers that feature, go with them. If it's, I think Gearhead is the only one that does it. Maybe there is another one by now. I don't know. But I would definitely go with that kind of tune. That's a 93 performance, 3-bar map sensor, do the spark plugs. As long as the coil packs are fine, I would leave them alone. If not, definitely get a set of MSD coil packs on there. They were a good upgrade over the factory. I don't think there's a huge difference other than they're cheaper than OEM and they worked just fine. So if you have old tire coil packs, MSDs are fine. And the only other thing I would recommend to do to the car wouldn't really be power. If you want exhaust, honestly, muffler delete, that gives you enough volume. It doesn't get crazy. You get a little bit of drone unless you get a louder muffler put in place of the factory muffler, but it's not too bad. And then I just get a set of lowering springs. Just lower the car down a little bit, more or less just to even out the raked stance they have from the factory. So you just got to lower the back down a little bit, just kind of give that even stance. Unless you like the rake stance, then leave it. But other than that, I wouldn't do anything because the SHOs, the MKS, they're good cars. They're not a race car. The moment you try to turn them into anything more than a fast sedan, it just gets bad. They start nickeling and diming you, and it's just not worth it. You know, tune only, they're great cars. You know, they can still get 20 miles to the gallon if you keep your foot out of it. You know, they're comfortable, they're big, they're practical, huge trunks. I mean, yeah, so that's what I would do. Just basic tune, springs, and any other, if you want to do aesthetic mods, that's all up to you. But things I would recommend, that's it. Call it a day. It's a daily driver, not a race car. Enjoy it. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, we're going to go with my own questions. And it kind of plays off of that answer, which would be the tuning aspect. So this question would be my thoughts on remote tuning. Okay, so here's the thing. When I had my SHO, that was not the first time I had to do remote tuning. I first had my remote tuning experience with the Cobra. I bought my SCT X4 from American Muscle, their Bama Performance Tunes for Life thing for the Cobra, and that was a bad experience. While it was better than the factory tune, it wasn't really that great overall. I just wasn't really happy with the money I spent to get the gains I got. And then when I got the SHO, I used the same X4 to tune the SHO with the gearhead tune. The whole experience was really just a pain. Really, it was. Going through the auto octane tune from them, that was fine. Like, I got the initial tune. I think we did like 2 revisions, and it was fine. And it was the best tune I had on that car. The moment I went to go to the E30 tune, it was a hassle because the car was doing something that could not be picked up through the logs, and it was just a back and forth hassle with me and Gearhead trying to figure this out. And weeks went by, we couldn't figure it out, and it was just a waste of time and money because, you had to pay for the revisions. And that was that's when I decided to say, I will never do this again. I would never do remote tuning. If you're going to do a simple, just off-the-shelf tune or something from someone, maybe a revision or 2, that's fine. If you are trying to tune a vehicle for max power, I will never do that again. I will go to a dyno. I will find someone who is a professional in the field who does dyno tuning for a living, and I'll put the car on the dyno and have it tuned in that setting. I will not do it any other way. That's with any car going forward. If I want max power and I want it done right and I want it done at that time, I'm doing dyno tuning. I will never do remote tuning again. That's just me because it was just not a favorable experience. I mean, I can see if you live in an area where you literally have no one around that does dyno tuning within like hundreds of miles, then yeah, I can see you kind of have no choice. But most people do live in some type of developed area where there is a dyno shop, at least one somewhere along the way who could do it. Now, not to say they're good, of course, that's always a toss-up whether they're a good shop or not. But either way, I will never opt to do remote tuning again. That's just me. So moving on from that, do I prefer 4-cylinder engines? No, I do not prefer 4-cylinder engines. Even though my current car is a 4-cylinder and I've had multiple 4-cylinder cars in my lifetime, I do not prefer them. I like 4-cylinder engines. Don't get me wrong. I really do. I mean, I like anything that goes fast. I mean, the cool thing about 4-cylinder engines is they're cheaper to work on. They're easier to work on. Depending on which 4-cylinder engine we're talking about, I mean, you can build a pretty crazy 4-cylinder engine. Like if you're talking like the Honda K series and stuff, even the older B series engines or, the F series, any of those Honda 4-cylinder engines, without getting too crazy, you can make some pretty awesome, 200 plus horsepower NA 4-cylinder engines easy out of those things. And you're doing it with half the parts. You only got 4 pistons. You only got 2 camshafts. You only got 4 this and that. So it's so much cheaper and easier to work on, and it's one of the only engines that really you can build the rev really high without spending an arm and leg. And personally, I love high revving engines. So, there's that. 4 cylinders get better gas mileage inherently because there's just 4 cylinders. And they can be really reliable as well. But, the sound of a 4-cylinder isn't for everyone. I don't really hate the sound of 4 cylinders. With the right exhaust, any 4-cylinder can sound decent. You know, like the factory exhaust on the HPP Mustang, I think sounds really good. In other EcoBoost Mustangs, I don't think it sounds so great. There's just a lot of variables when it comes to the sound, but you know, like the Honda engines, they sound so good through the intake side. Exhaust side, not so much. Intake side, beautiful. You know, and it all depends. It all depends on what the engine is. I don't prefer 4-cylinder engines, but I don't hate them, obviously. So I love anything that makes a lot of noise, a lot of power, and revs really high. So if it's 4 cylinders, 3 cylinders, 2 cylinders, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever it is, I like it. So there's that. What's the fastest car you have driven? Okay. It's going to be a toss-up, and the second vehicle kind of goes into the next question as well. So I think the fastest vehicle I've driven, and I'm not talking about like 0 to 60, because if I were to say that, it probably would be the SHO. I think that, at least documented, is the fastest accelerating vehicle I've been in, and it was one of my own. As far as fastest overall, like overall most power, overall the fastest just vehicle, would probably be a C63 AMG sedan. In my days when I worked for Hertz, they had those vehicles, and I had a chance to take one out, and they're twin turbo AMG V8s, somewhere around 600 horsepower. I'll put the number on the screen when I edit the video. That car was really fast. I really liked that car. That was a nice car. Doing a roll on the highway, triple digit numbers came up really quick. That was probably one of the fastest cars I've been in. Now, the next question is, what's the most expensive vehicle you have driven? This vehicle is also a toss-up to be the fastest vehicle I've driven. I'm not sure if it was the fastest. It didn't feel as fast, but it was pretty freaking fast. So I briefly worked at an Audi dealership. I had a chance to drive a RS Q8. So it's a Audi SUV with the crazy twin turbo 4-liter V8 that they put in the RS7 and all the other crazy Audi cars. It made a lot of power. Even in the big SUV, that thing hauled ass. That was oh my God, if I could afford that vehicle, you talk about a freaking beautiful vehicle. Oh my God. It was beautiful with that twin turbo V8, and the price tag wasn't so pretty. So that's why it was the most expensive vehicle, and probably ties for the fastest vehicle I've driven at it was $130,000, $140,000. It was up there. And I was responsible for driving that vehicle, a good distance to transport it between 2 dealerships. I've never driven a vehicle that expensive ever. And it was awesome experience. It was an awesome vehicle. People who can afford those vehicles, definitely very fortunate. That was the most expensive vehicle I've ever driven, and probably it definitely one of the fastest I've ever driven. So there is that. And that's going to wrap it up here. That's all the questions I have for this Q&A video here on the channel. So if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Share with everyone you know. If you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Keep a lookout for next true car enthusiast video.